On this episode, I'm going to revisit an image I've edited previously called Leia's Repairs. It's an image of the Bespin Leia Black Series figure welding on a somewhat rudimentary set I built to represent the Millennium Falcon. In the background, there's the 6-inch Han Solo, Bespin Han Solo from the Black Series as well. This version is going to be slightly more bombastic than the previous one, more dramatic flares, and I really wanted to use it as an example of combining multiple passes of the same shot with layers and masks in order to take advantage of lighting effects. So let's jump into Pixelmator, and we'll head over and we'll select the images we want to use in this composite. So we're going to grab a nice clean version first, which is Leia just lit with a white LED panel. They're quite low level lights, it's nice and soft. And then we'll grab one with the same light panel, but this had a red gel over the front, so we could color the image a little bit. And what I'd recommend doing is when you get your images, just flip back and forth, make sure that they line up perfectly. My camera is locked off and I took the image on a timer, so there will be no movement within the camera. So I know the image is all overlaid perfectly, and we'll have the red effect on the top. What I'd recommend doing when you get this sort of thing into software is play around with the blend modes. Just experiment and see what happens when you change. Like that's if I try vivid light, for example, it gets a little bit more dramatic. Not something I really like. If we go and try maybe difference, and we'll see again, it's way too stylized for what I'm trying to achieve. So I'm going to turn off my blend modes. I'm just going to use a filter here. So I'm going to hit it with a mask, and I want to filter through that mask with a gradient. And I'm going to go from black to white. So I'm going to exclude part of that top layer. We'll have to invert that, Command I. And now you can see I'm punching through the red layer down to the exposure that I like. What I'm going to do as well is I'm going to brighten some of these highlights on layer. I'm just going to switch over to highlights with the dodge tool. So what I'm doing is I'm just hitting everything that's a highlight on Leia's face, on her glove, and on her collar there, just to make it look like she's being hit with the flare from that welding gun that she's got, that welding torch. So I'm exaggerating what's already present in the bottom layer. And then we're going to add a few special effects. So I'm going to drag this flare in. Like I said before, the original flare was a much more subtle flare. This one's a little bit more dramatic. I'm going to need to obviously make this a bit larger. So we'll get the move tool, and we will transform that to a more appropriate size. And of course, it's got the black background, so I'm going to use screen blend options to combine that. But for the moment, I just want to get it into position. So I've reduced the opacity so I can move it to the end of her welding torch, and then I know how large I need to make this element of the image before I finish the composite. So that's about the end of the torch. Go back up to 100% opacity, and I'll hit that with a screen blend mode, get rid of the black, and that's a welding torch. Now the problem is I've got some flares creeping over onto Leia's head, so what I need to do really is I need to rotate that a little bit more using transform and the move tool. I'll rotate the flares away because I don't want the Leia figure being hit with something distracting. I want her to remain the focus of the image, which now means I'm going to need to reposition that flare. And also what I want to do is I want to make that a bit more of a cold light. I'm going to up the blues, and I'll reduce the red somewhat so that it makes it a bit cooler. And what that's done is you can see then the blend mode is highlighting the black, so I'm in screen blend mode. So I could clone that out, I could erase that out, but what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to make the flare larger in the frame so that any of that remaining black from the screen blend is hidden, and we still keep that nice dramatic flare with those flare elements coming off into the rest of the image. I think that is quite good. All right, this extra element is going to be the reflection in her goggles. Now I want to get a nice horizontal flare, so I'm going to rotate this slightly so that those two nice spikes that come off the edge of that flare are running across the horizontal axis, and I'll resize that. I'm going to go a bit larger with this, I think. be a bit more dramatic in those goggles. It's not quite as bright as I would like as well. So, okay, let's duplicate that. And then we'll position that in the other lens. So now we've got the two. I want to combine those together. So Command E will combine those two layers into one. And then we're going to need to go and screen blend that to get rid of the black again. I want to duplicate that to make that a bit brighter. That's a little bit too much. So the top layer, I'll reduce the opacity down a tad until I'm comfortable with it. And that will give me, that's kind of the look I'm after, I think, there, with the reflection in her goggles, the welding torch. All right. And I've got all my elements. I'm happy with all the elements, so I'll combine them in, I'll group them together into one folder, duplicate that, turn off the separate elements, and I will merge my duplicate into one flat layer. And then I'm going to crop this to the size of the canvas. I might tweak the composition a little bit. I like the fact that you can see Han in the background, but I really want Leia to be the center of this image. All right, so I can already see a little bit of an issue with this vignette that I'm trying to add. I like to add vignette to a lot of images to sort of guide the eye to the center of the frame, but I'm not sure I'm happy with this. So let's just let's grab my watermark and stick that on, and we'll see if that vignette is going to stay. I need to move that, not the image layer. I need to move the watermark layer up. Position that there. Yeah, it's yeah, I really don't like the vignette, so I think we're going to take that back actually. So I want to walk back some of those changes. If you do Command Z on a Mac, you can walk back the changes that you've made to the document. It just undoes. So we're just going to undo that. We're going to undo the vignette. See, I like that flare. That's really the essence of this image. Stick the watermark back in. Yeah, I think that looks much better. I'm definitely going to recompose the framing of this shot as well. My logo will stay down in that corner, but I'm going to crop out some of that stuff on the far right, I think. I want Leia to be central. She's the focus of this shot. That's the story I'm trying to tell. So we're going to just grab the move tool and we're just going to tweak that slightly. Yeah, I think that's kind of where I want it. I don't mind seeing Han, watching her. That's kind of the important thing. I'll crop that now to size. But yeah, Leia should definitely be the focus of this shot. So there it is. It's a repass at Leia's repairs. Save this out. It's a little bit more bombastic. The flares are a little bit more dramatic. But really the idea behind recovering this image is to experiment with layering up multiple passes of the same shot. Let's take a closer look at the image. Yeah, so what we're left with is the Hasbro Leia figure welding on a somewhat simplistic Millennium Falcon set with the Han Solo figure in the background. The composite here was two lighting passes, the same shot, just lit very differently. The clean layer is just a low-level white LED panel. The layer I've put over the top of it had a red gel over it, makes it a little bit more dramatic, and I can poke through that red pass to reveal Leia's face underneath to make it look like there's a flash of light on her face from that welding gun, and then we've comped in some flares to add some effect to the shot. The overall item, the overall image, the final image, I'm very pleased with. So hope you like it. I hope you learned something from this episode, and I'll see you on the next one.